Today, we will be talking about famous people who died in some of the strangest and most unexpected ways. Number 1, Bruce Lee, the martial arts legend who died after taking a painkiller. On July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee was in Hong Kong preparing for a film that would later become known as Game of Death. He was only 32 years old, but he had already changed martial arts cinema and become one of the most recognizable stars in the world. Lee appeared to be in excellent physical condition. He trained constantly, kept his body lean, and had built his image around speed, strength, and total physical control. That made the events of his final day even more difficult for fans to understand. That afternoon, Lee met producer Raymond Chow to discuss plans for the film. The two later visited the apartment of actress Betty Ting Pei, who was expected to appear in the project. While they were there, Lee complained that he had developed a headache. Ting Pei gave him a prescription painkiller called Equagesic. The medication contained aspirin and a tranquilizing muscle relaxant called meprobamate. Lee swallowed the tablet and went into a bedroom to rest before a planned dinner meeting. Hours later, Ting Pei tried to wake him. Lee did not respond. Raymond Chow was contacted, and Lee's personal doctor was summoned to the apartment. The doctor attempted to revive him, but could not get a response. An ambulance transported Lee to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, where medical workers continued trying to save him. Bruce Lee was pronounced dead that evening. The news shocked Hong Kong and quickly spread around the world. Lee was young, famous, and known for appearing almost superhuman on screen. Many people refused to believe that he could have died after simply taking a painkiller and lying down. An autopsy showed that Lee's brain had become severely swollen. The swelling, known as cerebral edema, increased the pressure inside his skull and prevented his brain from functioning properly. The official explanation was that Lee suffered a hypersensitive reaction to one of the ingredients in the medication. The coroner ruled his death a misadventure, meaning it was accidental. However, the unusual circumstances immediately produced rumors. Some people claimed that Lee had been killed by organized criminals. Others blamed martial arts rivals, who supposedly resented him for teaching Chinese fighting techniques to Western students. Another theory involved a family curse. This became even more popular after Lee's son, Brandon Lee, died in a filming accident 20 years later. Medical researchers have also suggested other explanations. Some believe Bruce Lee may have been suffering from heat-related illness, or that his body was unable to remove excess water properly, creating a dangerous imbalance that contributed to the brain swelling. None of those later theories has replaced the official ruling. Bruce Lee died after taking medication for an ordinary headache. The man, famous for defeating opponents with his bare hands, was brought down by a reaction happening silently inside his own body. Number 2, Steve Irwin, the wildlife expert, killed by a normally peaceful stingray. Steve Irwin spent his life getting close to animals that most people would never dare approach. He handled crocodiles, venomous snakes, large lizards, and sharks. His energetic personality and fearless style made him famous around the world as the crocodile hunter. Irwin did more than entertain people. He promoted wildlife conservation, operated Australia Zoo with his family, and taught viewers to respect animals that were normally treated as monsters. On September 4th, 2006, the 44-year-old conservationist was filming near Bat Reef off the coast of Queensland, Australia. The original plan involved capturing footage for a documentary called Ocean's Deadliest. Bad weather interrupted some of the scheduled filming, so Irwin and his crew decided to record additional footage of stingrays swimming in shallow water. Stingrays usually avoid humans. They are not aggressive hunters, and fatal attacks are extremely rare. Irwin entered the water with a cameraman and approached a large stingray from behind. The plan was to film the animal swimming away while Irwin appeared in the background. The stingray may have felt trapped between Irwin and the cameraman. It suddenly raised its tail and began striking upward. A stingray's tail contains a sharp, jagged barb covered in tissue that can deliver venom. The barb is normally used for defense when the animal believes a predator is attacking from above. The stingray struck Irwin in the chest. The barb caused a serious wound and damaged his heart. Irwin initially believed that his lung had been punctured. His crew quickly pulled him back onto their inflatable boat and began trying to stop the bleeding. They rushed toward the nearest vessel while performing CPR. Despite their efforts, the injury was too severe. Steve Irwin died within a short time. The accident was captured by the cameraman because Irwin had always instructed his crew to continue filming when something unexpected happened. The footage was never released publicly. Irwin's death shocked viewers because he had survived countless encounters with animals considered far more dangerous. He had worked closely with crocodiles, powerful enough to pull a person underwater, and snakes capable of delivering fatal venom. Yet, his life ended during an ordinary filming session with an animal that rarely kills anyone. Some people reacted by killing stingrays along the Australian coast. Irwin's supporters strongly condemned this because the animal had acted defensively rather than hunting him. His family continued his conservation work through Australia Zoo and Wildlife Warriors. His wife, Terry, and children Bindi and Robert became public advocates for protecting wildlife. Steve Irwin spent years teaching people that animals should not be blamed for acting according to instinct. Even after his death, that message remained central to his legacy. Number 3. Owen Hart, the wrestler who fell during a live arena entrance. Owen Hart came from one of professional wrestling's most famous families. He was the younger brother of Bret Hart, and had spent years performing for major wrestling organizations. Owen was respected inside the industry for his technical ability, sense of humor, and reputation as a careful performer. In 1999, he was appearing in the World Wrestling Federation under the masked character known as the Blue Blazer. The character was intentionally exaggerated and old-fashioned. As part of the performance, Hart was expected to make a dramatic entrance from the rafters during a pay-per-view event called Over the Edge. The event took place on May 23, 1999, at Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri. The plan required Hart to wear a harness connected to a cable above the arena. He would be lowered approximately 78 feet toward the wrestling ring. Earlier versions of the stunt had used more secure equipment, but the release mechanism took longer to disconnect once Hart reached the ring. For the Blue Blazer character, the company wanted a quicker and more awkward-looking release that would fit the comedy of the entrance. A quick release clip was selected. That decision proved fatal. Hart was lifted high above the arena, while a pre-recorded video played for the television audience. People inside the building could see movement in the darkness near the ceiling. Before the planned descent properly began, the quick release mechanism opened. Owen Hart fell more than 70 feet. He struck the top rope near one of the corners of the ring and then landed inside it. Many fans initially believed the fall was part of the show. Professional wrestling often uses dramatic stunts, and the audience did not immediately understand that they had witnessed a real accident. Medical personnel rushed into the ring and began treating Hart. The cameras did not broadcast the fall to viewers watching at home because the program was showing the recorded video package at that exact moment. Hart was taken to Truman Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead from severe internal injuries. He was 34 years old. The event controversially continued after the accident. Wrestlers performed while many of them were visibly shaken and did not yet know whether Hart had survived. Later in the broadcast, commentator Jim Ross informed the television audience that Owen Hart had died. The following night, the company presented a memorial program in his honor. Behind the scenes, questions quickly emerged about why such a dangerous entrance had been approved and why a quick release device had been used. Hart's widow, Martha Hart, filed a wrongful death lawsuit. The case was later settled for $18 million. Professional wrestling companies introduced stricter rules for aerial entrances and harness systems. Owen Hart's death became one of the industry's darkest moments, because it occurred in front of thousands of people during a show designed to create the illusion of danger. This time, the danger was real. Number 4. Isadora Duncan, the dancer killed by her own scarf. Isadora Duncan transformed the world of dance during the early 20th century. Traditional ballet relied on strict movements, fitted costumes, and controlled technique. Duncan rejected many of those rules. She danced barefoot, wore loose clothing, and created movements inspired by nature and classical art. Her flowing costumes and dramatic scarves became part of her public identity. On September 14, 1927, Duncan was in Nice, France. She climbed into an open sports car, driven by a young mechanic named Benoit Falchetto. Duncan was wearing an extremely long silk scarf, the fabric wrapped around her neck, with the remaining length trailing behind her. As the car began moving, the loose scarf fluttered through the open air. The rear wheels of the vehicle had exposed spokes. Part of the scarf fell toward the wheel and became caught. Within seconds, the rotating wheel pulled more of the fabric into the axle. The scarf tightened violently around Duncan's neck. The sudden force pulled her from the passenger seat. Her neck was broken, and the scarf strangled her almost immediately. She was dragged a short distance before the driver understood what had happened and stopped the car. Duncan died at the scene. The accident was so unusual that it became international news. The same fashion that had helped define her image had caused her death. Several versions of her final words have been repeated over the years. The most famous story claims that she told friends she was leaving for love or glory shortly before entering the car. The exact wording remains disputed. Medical writers later used the expression Isadora Duncan syndrome to describe injuries caused when scarves, ties, or other clothing become trapped in moving machinery. Her death also became an early warning about loose clothing around automobiles, motorcycles, industrial machines, and open wheels. Isadora Duncan had built her career around freedom of movement. Her life ended when a piece of flowing fabric became trapped in a machine moving faster than anyone could react. Number 5. Anton Yelchin, the actor crushed by his own vehicle. Anton Yelchin was one of Hollywood's most promising young actors. He began acting as a child and later became internationally known for playing Pavel Chekhov in the rebooted Star Trek films. By 2016, Yelchin had built a reputation for taking both major studio roles and smaller independent projects. He was 27 years old and appeared to have decades of work ahead of him. On June 19, 2016, Yelchin returned to his home in Studio City, California, after attending a rehearsal. His house had a steep driveway leading down toward the street. Yelchin parked his 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee near the top and stepped out. The vehicle used an electronic gear selector that returned to the same central position after the driver selected a gear. Unlike a traditional shifter, its physical position did not make it immediately obvious whether the vehicle was in park, neutral, reverse, or drive. Yelchin apparently believed he had placed the Jeep in park. It was actually left in neutral. After he got out, the vehicle began rolling backward down the driveway. Yelchin was standing between the Jeep and a brick mailbox pillar connected to a metal security gate. He had little space to move. The Jeep rolled into him and pinned his body against the structure. The pressure trapped his chest, making it impossible for him to breathe properly. He could not push the vehicle away or reach anyone for help. Friends discovered him several hours later after he failed to arrive for a planned rehearsal. Emergency workers pronounced him dead at the scene. The cause was traumatic asphyxia caused by the compression of his chest. The accident became even more troubling when investigators examined the vehicle. Fiat Chrysler had already announced a recall involving more than 1 million vehicles with similar electronic shifters. Drivers had reported becoming confused and leaving vehicles without realizing they were still in neutral or another gear. Hundreds of crashes, injuries, and rollaway incidents had been connected to the design. Yelchin had received a recall notice, but the repair had not yet been completed. His parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the manufacturer. They argued that the confusing shifter created the exact danger that killed their son. The case was settled privately in 2018. Later versions of the vehicle received different designs, and safety systems were introduced to reduce the risk of a car rolling away when the driver's door was open. Anton Yelchin had safely driven home. He died only a few feet from his front door because his vehicle was not in the gear he believed he had selected. Number 6. Vic Morrow, the actor killed during a helicopter stunt. On July 23, 1982, actor Vic Morrow was filming a scene for Twilight Zone, the movie at Indian Dunes, a movie ranch in California. The scene was set during the Vietnam War. Morrow's character was supposed to carry 2 children through shallow water while explosions went off and a helicopter hovered above them. The children were 7-year-old Micah Din Lee and 6-year-old Renee Shinyi Chen. The sequence was filmed during the night. The production had hired the children without properly following California's rules governing child actors. They were also working later than legally allowed. The scene involved several dangerous elements operating at the same time. Morrow had to carry both children through water. A real helicopter flew at low altitude above them. Explosive charges were placed nearby to simulate artillery fire. During one take, explosions detonated close to the helicopter. The blast affected the aircraft's tail rotor. The pilot lost control, and the helicopter began spinning downward toward the actors. Morrow attempted to carry the children away, but there was not enough time. The helicopter crashed into the water directly on top of them. Its main rotor blades were still turning at high speed. Vic Morrow and Micah were struck by the blades. Renee was crushed by the aircraft. All three died immediately. Multiple cameras recorded the accident because the production was filming from several angles. Investigators discovered that crew members had expressed concerns about the explosions and the low-flying helicopter. The children's employment had also been hidden from safety officials because the planned night work would not have been approved. Director John Landis and 4 other members of the production were charged with involuntary manslaughter. The criminal trial lasted for months and became one of the most important legal cases in Hollywood history. In 1987, all 5 defendants were acquitted. The families later received settlements through civil lawsuits. The accident transformed film production safety. Rules involving child performers, helicopters, pyrotechnics, nighttime filming, and coordination between departments became much stricter. The deaths also damaged the belief that filmmakers could take extreme risks simply because they wanted a scene to look more realistic. Vic Morrow and the 2 children were not killed during a real war. They died while creating the illusion of one. Number 7. David Carradine, the actor whose private accident became a public scandal. David Carradine became famous through the television series Kung Fu, and later reached a new generation of viewers through Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill films. In 2009, the 72-year-old actor traveled to Bangkok, Thailand, to work on a movie. On June 4th, Carradine failed to appear for a scheduled meal with members of the production. A hotel employee entered his room at the Swiss Hotel Nylert Park and discovered his body inside a closet. Carradine had died from asphyxiation. Early reports created confusion about whether he had taken his own life or whether another person had been present. Thai investigators examined the room and found no clear evidence of an intruder or violent struggle. The scene suggested that Carradine had been engaging in a dangerous private activity involving restricted breathing and had accidentally lost consciousness. A second examination, performed after his body returned to the United States, supported the conclusion that the death was accidental rather than intentional. Carradine's family initially questioned the official account. Some relatives raised the possibility that he had been attacked because of material he was supposedly investigating. Authorities found no strong evidence supporting those claims. The circumstances became an international tabloid story. Photographs believed to show the hotel room scene were leaked and published, causing additional suffering for Carradine's family. The public discussion often became more focused on embarrassment and sensational details than on the simple medical danger involved. Restricting oxygen can cause unconsciousness within a very short period. Once a person loses control of the body, it may become impossible to remove whatever is blocking breathing or blood flow. Carradine's death certificate listed accidental asphyxiation. He had spent decades portraying calm, controlled characters who survived violent confrontations. His actual death occurred alone in a hotel room during a private act that became dangerous before he could stop it. Number 8. Brandon Lee. The actor accidentally shot while filming his character's death. Brandon Lee was the son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee, but he was beginning to build an acting career of his own. By 1993, the 28-year-old had been chosen to star as Eric Draven in The Crow. The dark action film was expected to become his breakthrough role and turn him into a major Hollywood star. On March 31st, Brandon was filming a scene in Wilmington, North Carolina. In the scene, his character was supposed to enter an apartment and be shot by another character. The weapon used during filming was a real revolver, modified to fire blanks. Earlier, the production had needed realistic-looking bullets for close-up shots. Crew members created dummy cartridges by removing the gunpowder from real ammunition. However, at least one primer remained active. When that cartridge was fired during preparation, the primer had enough force to push the bullet out of its casing and lodge it inside the gun's barrel. The obstruction was not discovered. Later, the revolver was loaded with blank rounds for the scene involving Brandon. Blank ammunition does not contain a normal bullet, but it still produces a powerful explosion of hot gas. When the actor Michael Massey fired the revolver, the force from the blank launched the bullet fragment that had been trapped inside the barrel. The projectile struck Brandon in the abdomen. At first, some members of the crew believed he was simply performing the scene. He fell exactly as his character was expected to fall. When he did not get back up, they realized something had gone terribly wrong. Emergency workers rushed Brandon to a hospital, where doctors performed several hours of surgery and gave him large amounts of blood. The damage was too severe. Brandon Lee died later that day at the age of 28. The accident shocked the film industry because the gun was believed to contain harmless blanks. Investigators determined that a chain of mistakes had effectively turned the prop weapon into a functioning firearm. No criminal charges were filed, but the incident led to greater attention being placed on firearm inspections, ammunition handling, and the use of qualified weapons specialists on movie sets. Michael Massey, the actor who pulled the trigger, was reportedly deeply traumatized. He had followed the scene's instructions and had no idea that the gun could fire a deadly projectile. Most of the crow had already been completed. With the approval of Brandon's family, filmmakers finished the remaining scenes using body doubles and visual effects. The movie was released in 1994 and became a major success. Brandon's death also revived rumors about a supposed curse surrounding the Lee family. His father, Bruce Lee, had died suddenly at only 32, and now Brandon had died at 28, while filming a scene in which his character was being killed. In reality, Brandon Lee's death was not caused by a curse. It was caused by a series of preventable safety failures involving a weapon everyone believed was harmless. These famous people lived completely different lives. Bruce Lee became a martial arts icon. Steve Irwin worked with wild animals. Owen Hart performed in wrestling arenas. Isadora Duncan changed dance. Anton Yelchin built a film career. Vic Morrow acted in a war scene, and David Carradine became known for playing disciplined fighters. Yet each life ended through an event that seemed almost impossible until it happened. A headache led to fatal brain swelling. A normally peaceful animal struck a conservationist in exactly the wrong place. A harness released above a wrestling ring. A scarf became trapped in a wheel. A parked vehicle rolled backward. A film explosion brought down a helicopter. And a private activity ended in accidental asphyxiation. Their fame made the deaths international stories, but it could not protect them from a few seconds of bad timing, mechanical failure, medical reaction, or human error.